Greetings, and welcome to episode 40 of Change Your Focus, a mindfulness podcast designed to inspire and center you. I am Dr. Aiko-Douglas, your host, transformational life coach, life integration specialist, and mindfulness practitioner, here to empower you to transform your life one mindful decision at a time. I am also here inspiring you to be mindful of the products you use on and in your body, as well as the products you use around your home. Thank you for bearing with me while I work out the audio. So, in last week's episode on the topic Speak, I talked about my journey to sharing my story on IG Live and now on YouTube and other podcast streams. And I also shared one of my favorite stories right now. Fawn Weaver and Uncle Nearest whiskey story is simply fascinating. May you be inspired by the stories you hear and compelled to speak and tell your own story. You are courageous and you are free to tell your own story. Take control of your life narrative. So if you found my story last week inspiring or the meditation enlightening, or if any of the information was fruitful, please share. Also, if you have any questions about the episode or would like life coaching to support you in being courageous and authentically sharing your story, please click my Calendly link in the description or message me on any social platform at Integr8 Lyfe. For a complimentary discovery session, I explained to you all last week what this discovery call looks like. So if you're in need of support or coaching, again, click that link or find me on social media at Integr8 Lyfe for a complimentary discovery session so we can explore how I can best support you. I would love to support you. Let's check here and make sure, yes, that our chat is working and going well. Awesome. I see you all. A big thank you to everyone who is supporting me by voting daily to be the next face of Fab Over 40. This campaign is raising money for the National Breast Cancer Foundation. I'm sending so much gratitude to all those who have donated and continue to donate to the cause. Also, I am sending a special thanks to those who are casting your free vote daily. It is free, folks. It takes 1 minute, and I appreciate you all who are doing this. I feel the love. If you have yet to vote, please use the Fab Over 40 link in the description to vote for me daily. We have 4 more days. So Thursday, November 21st at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time will be the finalist cut. And so a few more days to vote for those of you who are showing up daily. Hang in there. We got this. Thank you for your time, vote, and support. So let's get into it. Today's episode is about grief. Now, I invite you to contemplate this Tuscarora proverb. They are not dead who live in the hearts they leave behind. Again, this is from the Tuscarora tribe, Native American tribe. They are not dead who live in the hearts they leave behind. When I contemplate this quote, I think about one of the hardest moments I faced with grief. My paternal grandmother's transition a year after getting a divorce. She suffered with congestive heart failure, and I would go to her house at least once a month when I was a little girl and stay the weekends. And in the summer, I felt like it may have been every weekend. And we'd have so much fun. She'd cook and sing and dance and bake, and we'd go to church. And she had this big, boisterous laugh, full of joy and life and light. And she was loud and she was a lively woman and she had no shame and would tell it like it is. She was so different from my mom. She didn't care if anyone saw her. I mean, really saw her. She wasn't trying to cover up anything. She was proud of her journey and knew she wasn't always righteous. And she bragged on God for changing her life and her ways. And her brutal honesty really shined a light for me. Some of my most fond memories is when I was a young adult and I would come home from college for the summers and I'd spend time with her. And so I'd come over there, I'd put on one of her big gowns and I would get in bed with her and we slept and we rested. And when I woke, she would say, "Get that Bible." And the Bible would always be on her nightstand by the bed. And she would tell me to turn to a certain scripture and read. And as I read, she would recite along with me. I remember the first time that she did this, I was shocked. I didn't know that she knew the Bible like that. Like she knew the Bible like the back of her hand. And as I would read, she was saying the words and not after me, with me, and sometimes before me. Like she knew the word. And I later realized I wasn't reading the Bible to her. She was getting me to read the Bible. She already knew every word in it and she wanted me to know them as well. So I read it and I grew to like it. And later, after she transitioned, I really grew to love reading the Bible. And she would always say, which is in the Bible, study to show thyself approved. And so it didn't click till later. You know, she was getting me again to really to study the Bible, to know it for myself. And that came in handy later as I grew up and was going to church and hearing different people and pastors say different things and me being able to challenge and really know the meaning of things and what the word actually said and actually meant versus what someone may have been conveying. And it really helped me in my journey decide what I knew and know is truth about God versus sometimes what was projected and told to me is what was true. And so that I'm very grateful for that. I learned from her, learned so many things from her, but so some more of my fond memories of her is her calling me on my birthdays and she would say, "Do I have a granddaughter? Can I speak to my granddaughter?" And I'd say, "Yes." And she'd say, "I have something for you, Shannon." And this was before I changed my name, of course. And which I already knew she had my favorite pound cake that she used to make. It was everyone's favorite pound cake. And I'd make my way over there and get my pound cake for my birthday. But this pound cake was known in Houston for like just being the best. Every pastor, every church would reach out to her to make this pound cake for special occasions. And it was her gift to many people or whatever they wanted. She made tea cakes and buttermilk pies and what else? Sweet potato pies. I mean, this woman baked and cooked, and she always did this for church on Sunday. And yeah, so it was my favorite cake, and she knew that. So for my birthday, she made me this pound cake, and I'd go over and I'd pick it up. And she may not have had a lot of money, but she gave. She was a giver. She tithed and she did what she could for people. She baked and she cooked and she showed up and she gave in that way. She gave of her time to serve. and to make sure that people felt love with having the sweets that they wanted for their special events. And she'd host parties at her house and again cook and bake and make the most beautiful salads. And actually, when she passed, I got a lot of her fine china and cutlery that I have and use, and it reminds me of her every time. So I enjoy just seeing it and using it and knowing that she entrusted that with me. But again, she really loved people and showing up for them. And so she'd bake for funerals and functions. And again, like I said, anything else. She was always baking. I remember waking up on Saturday mornings and the home smelling like heaven. And I mean heaven, at least what I imagine heaven to smell like. If you could see her on weekends, or at least the weekends that I was there, she'd wake up about 4 a.m. I was still in bed, but she'd wake up and she'd read her Bible, maybe one scripture, and then she'd go into the kitchen and turn on her praise and worship music, and she'd sing and praise and worship. I mean, as if God was right there in the kitchen with her, full out worship and praise while she was baking. So imagine like the essence, the aroma in the kitchen, the spirit in the kitchen as she was doing this. So definitely those cakes and pies and food was filled with so much love and divine spirit. You could feel it. And so I remember waking up sometimes and I just lay in bed and listen to her worship, and I just, you could feel God. And it was the most beautiful thing that I'd experienced, and which was one of the reasons why I like going there, not just to like eat the food, but the experience of seeing her joy in what she did and love what she did for others and her love for God. It was evident. If you did not know, if you were to see her on a Saturday morning baking for people with all the joy and all the love, you definitely felt it when you ate her sweets. And so yes, her home always smelled like heaven to me, and a bakery filled with pound cakes and pies. And so when she passed away, I kept busy. I was working and I was in grad school, and I did not really grieve until about a year later. And it hit me literally like a ton of bricks. It was actually on Christmas Day, and I could not get out of bed, and I didn't know what was going on. I'd never experienced this before. So I later realized that I was triggered when I had stopped by my grandparents' home a few days before Christmas, and I went there. It felt cold. There were no decorations, and the home did not smell like heaven, and there were no cakes or pies. And I didn't realize it then, but it did feel weird. And then on Christmas Day, it hit me. There would be no more Christmases with her, and life would not be the same. And I cried and cried and cried that day. And I did not get out of bed until 3 p.m. that day. My mom convinced me to come hang out with her side of the family. And so I did. On my mom's side, we typically have the family reunion every other Christmas. And so this was one of those Christmases where they were having the family reunion. And so once I finally got out of bed and got some clothes on, I eventually made my way there, but I just felt lost that day. I even made two other stops and I still just felt disoriented. And I guess I needed the holidays for things to slow down and for me to stop and to be still and allow it to really settle in that she was actually gone. And so after this, I began to think of her quite often. And when I did, she'd show up somehow. Oftentimes, her favorite song would play on the radio, and I knew she was there. I was, it was comforting. It was comforting for me to know that when I needed her, I could summon her. Um, Again, oftentimes I'd be driving and the radio would be on, and one of her favorite songs from Lee Williams and the Spiritual QCs, that was her favorite. And those songs would come on, and they rang so much more true for me now that she was no longer here. I felt them and heard them in a way that I never heard them before. And it was as if she was like in the car with me singing along, because I would start to sing and praising, and just the most beautiful, beautiful moments that were also comforting in my moments of grieving. And I would think about these memories, all sorts of memories that we have, and I would laugh. And even in my laugh, because I noticed later that I have her big boisterous laugh, I have that laugh, and I'd catch myself laughing sometimes and like, is she here? And it's like, yeah, she's here within me, and I have her same laugh, and I never realized it then. And maybe it's grown and it's transformed and it's become bigger as I've matured, but it's that same loud laugh that she had, and I love that. um, that she gifted me with that. And so occasionally, again, I would talk to her and cry. And even as I'm in the kitchen, sometimes cooking and baking, I'd laugh and turn on my music and dance and sing just like her, turning on my spiritual music or anything that gets me into my body, into the present, and really inviting in her spirit to be in the kitchen as I cook in a spirit of love and joy, so that all that I make may be delighted in with so much love and felt with so much love and received. And so, like this proverb says, I realized that I carried her in my heart and her spirit was alive and well, although her body was no longer. And so then I began to reflect on how was I grieving prior to this trigger of her not being there a few days before Christmas. And I think about, or what I know and grew to know and understand about grief is this, it's called the Kubler-Ross model, and it's the 5 stages of grief, which was first introduced by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She's a Swiss psychiatrist in 1969 in her book On Death and Dying. And it denotes 5 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And so these 5 stages are not necessarily linear, and they can flow. You can go through them at random order, and you can also experience some of them simultaneously. So I want to look at these 5, right? So like I said, denial. So let's look at denial and what that really is. So this shock, this disbelief about the loss of someone or something. I definitely went through that denial phase because we didn't talk about my grandma's death. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't receive any sort of support. I just kept busy. And the only time I remember is when my aunt first called me. I was at work and I got the call and I stopped for a moment. It hit me. I cried briefly and then I was numb and I got back to work and doing, showing up, planning the funeral, doing the things, and then again going back to work and school, and I just kept going. And so again, when that Christmas rolled around, and I was in disbelief that she wasn't there, her home didn't smell like heaven, and there would be no more holidays with her. So that's what denial looks like, folks. And so then anger. So I was feeling frustrated also. So you have these feelings of frustration, maybe resentment, irritability about the loss. And it shows up in different areas and different ways of your life. And you can take this anger out on people and things that have nothing to do with it. And so I definitely went through that a few times and I didn't understand what was going on. It didn't make sense to me then. I just felt like I was angry at people. And I had no patience. And so I remember I was angry at the pastor who preached her funeral, and I thought he was long winded and lousy. As much as my grandmother enjoyed church and loved church, that service did not do her justice. And yeah, so I would get angry at random people who had nothing to do with this actual frustration. And at the time, like I said, I didn't understand why I was so impatient or unforgiving of others. I offered no grace. And I remember getting mad at a mechanic who had made a mistake, at coaches who didn't hold their ball players accountable and expected me to be a lenient teacher. Teachers who shared my room and didn't respect my space and leave it tidy as they had found it when they came in for their class. And there was also a few times where one of them would eat my snacks that I bought for the students, and I would just go off on everybody. And I didn't know who this person was, like who had I become? So if you're going through that and you're noticing that you're more angry, you're not understanding why, you're testy, this is one of the stages. It is normal. It is okay. And so then bargaining. Let's look at bargaining. So this is attempting to regain control by making deals with a higher power, whatever it is you believe in. Universe, God, I believe in all of it. All of that was, all that is, and all that ever will be. And so bargaining with that higher power. And so I remember a moment that I can recall where I bargained with God saying, why couldn't it have been my absent father? He was never there anyway, or didn't want to be. At least that's what I perceived as a young girl, because he never was. I think I've shared with you all that he was on drugs and out in the streets. And so I remember having that bargain with God. Well, why not just, why couldn't it be him instead of my beloved, ever present grandma? She was active in my life, and I even lived with her for a stint when I came back from college for about 3 months, and then we got into it. Didn't see eye to eye. I moved, but there was a time where I did stay with her, and so that is what bargaining looked like for me. And again, beloved, if you're going through that, it is normal. It is okay. You don't have to beat yourself up for those thoughts. It is normal. Depression, experiencing this sadness, this hopelessness and despair. And for sure, there were days where I grappled with depression, especially the day again that it hit me, and I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't even know how. I didn't feel like my body could move. I was just there. I remember picking up my phone and typing this long tribute post and putting her picture, and I did do that on Instagram. And then after I did that, that helped me release some, breathe some, and then I was able to say some things to my mom and slowly start moving and get out of bed. And so, yeah, for sure that was a day. And so, again, I definitely felt hopeless when I found out, even though, again, like I said, we were expecting it, and my aunt had called, and I was at work and I cried, and I felt hopeless for sure. And so, again, this depression can set in for you. So that's normal. It is okay. And then the last stage, and again, it's not necessarily in this order, it's just how I'm saying this. You can go through them in whichever order. Again, you can experience them at the same time, but acceptance is the last one that I'm talking about. And so that's just coming to terms with the loss of this thing or this person or this situation or this outcome that you imagine. Like I said, it doesn't always have to be a person, right? It could be knowing that this relationship will no longer flourish as you imagine because it's over, whether that's a friendship or otherwise. And so coming to terms with that, accepting it, and finding ways to move forward. So after that Christmas, I began to see and accept, yes, the reality that my grandmother is deceased, and eventually feel whole again by accepting that and knowing that although she is not here physically, she is here in spirit, and I can see her and hear her when I desire. And that feels good, and that is healing, and that is comforting. And I still cry, as you can see, right? My heart is still tender, and also I feel good and whole, and I know that she is with me, and I carry her in my memories. And so, again, it is okay, whatever stages you are going through, it is all a part of the grieving process. Again, what is grief? Grief forces us to face the greatest expression of love there is, letting go. And to let go of that physical form of my grandmother and know that she is better off. She is well in her body, to no longer be upset at her. There was a time where I was upset at her. I was angry at her because I thought that she gave up. And I thought she was the selfish one, her being sick and knowing God so well. I was like, why would you just choose to go and give up and leave? And then later I realized I was the selfish one. Because I wanted her to stay here and be in suffering pain because she was not well. And so really letting go and knowing that she's 100% well. She's happy. She's singing every day and baking every day and doing what brings her joy. Um, is amazing. And so these expressions of love that will never get conveyed to, or never be conveyed to the person in real time. This is grief, right? This emotional response to loss, maybe this broken heart or feelings of isolation. Again, summoning and willing the spirit and presence of that person, which is sometimes what I do. And crying alone, crying with others, mourning, and sometimes even envying others who still have that beloved person in their life, even though you may not, right? So a partner, a parent, a child, whatever, being misunderstood or judged by others who haven't experienced grief as you do and are experiencing it. I hadn't always experienced grief like that. I had lost people before in my life, and it didn't hit me like that. So recognizing it's all different. And so it's going to look different for different people. And then there's also this thing of missing grief itself. Well, once you heal and wondering what to do with your days after that, and then maybe even feeling guilty because you don't think you deserve to miss someone who maybe you didn't always get along with. That's a thing too. So not empathizing with anything but other people's grief. So whatever anybody else is going through, if it's not grief, if it's not loss of something or someone like you, then you don't have any time or space for it and you think it's trivial. That's a thing. Wishing loss on others so that they would understand, or again, this bargaining, wishing someone else instead of this person. Whatever the case, others conceiving, maybe when you have had a loss, you are envious of that. And so there's so many layers of how this grief can look for different people. And so then there's also like grieving, like this feeling like you haven't forgotten or erased the person, right? So maybe you could feel guilty about that, right? I'm not grieving anymore. And so have I erased this person? No, it's okay. You don't have to grieve every day. It doesn't look like that. Give yourself time and space to allow it to be what it is without judgment, without feeling guilty or shame or any of it. There's sometimes even panic or worry that others you love will also transcend or pass away. And so then you start to keep things close, or maybe you control things too much. And so that's a thing too. And so it's all a part of the process. And so there's also this like relief and this peace and this quiet and this stillness after an ill person transcends. And I finally got to that with my grandma, knowing that she feels good every day and she's not suffering. I had to come to that again, as I've shared. And so that's a thing. And allow yourself to go through all of it. If you're jealous of other people and things that other people are doing that you may no longer be able to do because you're absent that person, that's okay too. And there's this other side of it that where we maybe paint a person all one way. So like all good or all bad, instead of remembering and acknowledging the full spectrum of that person, the total nature of that person. That's a thing too. So just be cautious and aware and know that that person was allowed to be full and have shadow and light just like anyone else. And we can tell the full story. Know that it's okay. Like I've shared with my grandma, she would share her entire truth, not just this one part. I'm now living righteous and doing this. She told us all of it and all the things that she grappled with, and her shadow as well as her light. And that's the beauty of humanity, knowing that we are all these things. We're not just one dimensional, so many layers, multi-layered, multifaceted. We are. And so allowing that person that you know to be the full spectrum, and different people are going to grieve in different ways. And so it's knowing that if you are in a family grieving a person and you are not allowed to express your the fullness of your experience with that person, and maybe the family only wants to paint this person one way, you good all the time, then you can find a safe haven somewhere else where you can share your full truth of who that person is, because that has every right in your grieving process, because it is true. When you want to remember the person how they were, like I said, I didn't always get along with my grandma. We had some tension, and that's a part of the relationship too. And being able to see her angry and upset and fierce, and also this beautiful woman who was so giving and sacrificial, and know that sometimes she says some mean things and some evil things, and that's fine too. So it's all of her. And so that is okay. So what are some things that we can grieve? Again, like I've said, you can grieve relationships. You can grieve old versions of yourself, right? Like the person that you used to be that maybe you're longing for, and knowing that you can integrate that. But maybe some things that you've laid to rest and you no longer want to be that way. You can grieve those old versions of yourself as you're growing and maturing. You can, again, grieve futures that will no longer be or come to pass thanks to things changing. You can grieve lifestyles, you name it. So any loss. And what does it feel like? Again, the emotions that come up is like sadness, anger, anxiety, fear, numbness, helplessness, hopelessness, guilt, confusion, yearning, apprehension, anguish, any of these things. There's even physical symptoms that come along with this. And so crying easily, trouble sleeping, a little interest in food. I went through that definitely that day. I don't think I ate. I think when I went to the family reunion, they got me to eat a little bit, and that was it. And I couldn't believe it, because if you know me, I love to eat, and I did not eat. And that is okay too. Just notice where you are and what is happening. And so problems with concentration, headaches, nausea, upset stomach, joint pain, weak muscles, tightness in your throat and your chest, all physical symptoms. And there are other symptoms like obsessively dwelling on the past and separation anxiety. There's regret. You can have remorse. I didn't say this, or I didn't spend as much time, or I didn't make myself fully present because I didn't want to experience this anguish, this loss. And so I distanced myself so this wouldn't hurt as bad. Sorrow, so many other symptoms, triggers, right? So the sudden reminder of a loved one, like I said, when her songs would come on, definitely when I smell bakeries and things baking, or when people would make pound cakes, and I'd have them, but It's like nothing is as good, was ever good, or will ever be as good as my grandma's pound cake. And different sounds, special occasions, any of those things can be triggers. Places you go, maybe it's places you went to with your loved one. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, and we all experience grief differently. And so here are some tips for coping with grief. One, I want you to be patient with yourself. Mourning takes time. Remember to take care of yourself. So eat a healthy, balanced diet. Get at least 8 hours of sleep, whatever you need to do. If you need support around that, there are natural remedies for that. Melatonin, magnesium, ashwagandha. There's so many things. And so get the support you need. Physical exercise regularly. If you are moving your body, that's going to help you with sleep at night too. So get that activity in during the day. Most importantly, talk. Talk, talk, talk. Don't keep your emotions bottled in. Talk to family. Talk to friends. Let people know how you feel and what's going on in your mind. That is important. Like I said, they're in the denial phase. We did not talk about my grandmother's transition. So join a support group. That is important. Now, there are support groups that are in person, and now thank goodness, there are also online grief support groups. So you can get the help you need and you don't even have to leave your home. And not only that, but if you wanted to do a grief support group with family members, you all could all chime in from wherever you are via Zoom and show up. And so you can get the support you need. And so you can find these places through local hospice, hospitals, religious communities, and even government agencies. So you can attend these things with friends, or if you want to do this solo or find groups outside of your family for whatever reasons, just so you feel safe, get the support you need. While I did not join a support group with my grandmother's grief, there were other times that I dealt with grief, like grieving my parents' divorce. I went to a support group, and grieving when I got divorced, that relationship, I went to a support group, and I eventually led a support group at the church that I used to attend. So also, again, consider professional support, talking with a counselor, psychologist about your grief can really, really help you. Get the support you need. It is okay. It is normal. It is natural. Don't let anyone tell you that, whatever, shame you into saying you shouldn't need that. Get the support you need. It is there. And then most importantly, honor your loved ones. Take small steps to remember them and celebrate their life in ways that feel good for you. Maybe that's going to the gravesite, mausoleum, putting flowers, keeping the grave nice, or maybe that's meditating, setting up an ancestor altar. Maybe that's starting a charity for them. In whichever way you want to honor them, in whichever way maybe they ask to be honored before they transition, please do that, okay? And know that as they are in your hearts, they are right there. It reminds me of Celine Dion's song, My Heart Will Go On, right? You can see this person in your dreams, wherever. They can be right there with you. And so because they're in your heart, they do indeed go on. And so there are some people who don't allow themselves to get too close to people, as I mentioned earlier, right? Because they fear loss and they want to shield themselves and protect themselves from that hurt of the loss. However, what studies have found is that when that person is gone, the person who stayed the distance, kept that distance and didn't get as close or didn't become as fully present, they wish that they would have leaned in more. They have that regret. They wish they would have been fully present with them and really open their hearts more. And so I encourage you all, for those of you who still have the people who are there with you, maybe you're seeing their health wane and you're pulling back. I encourage you to lean in, enjoy these last moments, really be fully present. It's okay. Loss is normal. According to a WebMD survey, 48% of people said that their most intense feelings of grief subsided within 6 months. So 6 months is not long, folks, for you to be grieving. And 67% said that they'd recovered within 1 year. Again, 1 year is not a long time, folks, for you to be grieving. It is worth it for you to lean in. And also, pet owners were the most likely to recover a little more quickly. Again, not that we're speeding up this process, but for those of you who have maybe been thinking about a pet and you're grieving, it may be a good time. Queen Cuddles has been so therapeutic for me in ways that I didn't even imagine when she came to me. And she knows when I'm having a moment. She knows when I'm not well. In fact, a few days ago, I was in my kitchen thinking about some things and situations that have shown up for me, and I was feeling away. And she came and she climbed on my back and she really showed me love, and she held me and hugged me and kissed me, and it allowed me to just cry, to let it out, to let go. And I felt comforted and loved and seen. And then when her work was done, she was done. And so pets can really be supportive in the grieving process, any process. They're just quite loving creatures. And so thank God for pets. And so again, for those of you who are thinking you're going to avoid grief in some way by pulling away, I want to encourage you that generally the grief process can last anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. But if you think about it, that is not a long time. And it is worth you leaning in and becoming even closer and being even more transparent and open and fully present with your beloved while they are here. Okay? So, and most people say that the really intense grief is pretty much subsided within 6 months. And so I will say that, like, once I made time to actually sit down, acknowledge, accept, and feel the grief, I healed quickly. And so take the time to do that, especially you men. What they've found out in the study show is that women are likely to experience intense grief. 70% of women reported moderate to severe grief compared to the 40% of men. And so there's different things that I believe about those statistics, but take what you will from that, okay? And so find the resources that you need. There are podcasts, groups. There's even an app for grieving, for grievers. It's called Untangle. They have an Instagram page. I don't know about a Facebook page, but they do have an Instagram page, and they have an app. It's called Untangle. So if by chance you are finding yourself in grief or grieving, then get the support that you need. It is there. It exists. It is worth it. You deserve to feel whole and happy and thrive. And your beloved, your loved one would want you to. So in this moment, I would like to guide you through a brief mindfulness practice to support you in healing your heart and grieving. And so while I cue up our music, I invite you to make yourself still, comfortable, and relaxed. There we go. Okay, making yourself still, comfortable, and relaxed. Yes, good, excellent. And so, as you're making yourself still, comfortable, and relaxed, begin to tune into your breath. Begin to tune into your breath. And just notice where it is. Is it shallow? Is it deep? And notice where it is in your body. Is it down below? Is it in your belly? Simply notice where it is. Awesome. And now I invite you to make sure that your neck is straight wherever you are. Maybe you decided to lie down. That's fine. Just make sure there's a clear channel between your neck and your spine. And then I invite you to close your eyes. And as you're tuning into your breath, I invite you to inhale a little more deeply and a little more slowly. And then begin to inhale through your nose and exhale out of your mouth. That's it. And now I invite you to become aware of your inhales and exhales and allow your exhales to be longer than your inhales. So if you're inhaling for 8 seconds, then allow your exhale to be 9 or 10 seconds. That's it. Really notice where your breath is in your body. And bring it down to your abdomen. Breathing deeply into your belly. Feeling your stomach expand and contract. And notice what is softened in your body. Perhaps your shoulders are relaxed now. Maybe your face is a little more relaxed. The space between your eyebrows is relaxed. Simply notice what's shifting as you inhale through your nose and exhale out of your mouth, deeply and slowly. Excellent. Now release this breath and breathe at a normal deep pace that feels good for you. And with your eyes closed, imagine you are surrounded by a ball of light. And you feel safe. And you are protected by divine and all those who came before you. And your beloved ancestors are surrounding you. Now, see a person that you have been grieving lately. Imagine the person is slowly approaching you. And as they become closer, you embrace this person with love and you say, I miss you. And you embrace this person and they embrace you back. and they look you in the face, and you listen to what they have to say to you. As you're looking your loved one in the eyes, take in their words, digest them, receive them, believe them. And now tell this person you love them. And tell them anything else that has been on your heart and mind that you want to say to them as they listen intently. And once you wrap up what you have to say, this person says to you, I love you, and embraces you. And as you all embrace, they then begin to slowly walk away. And as they are walking away, they look back at you and smile and say, I am here. And you receive that and know that whenever you want to commune with this person, all you have to do is return. You smile. You feel comforted as you watch them walk away, knowing that you will always be able to access them. And right where you are, you thank this person. You thank divine, and you thank your ancestors for supporting you and guiding you. And take a deep breath. Beloved, be grateful for the time you had with your loved one. Be patient with yourself as you navigate the grieving process. Know that you are surrounded by love and support, even during your darkest moments. Know that you are worthy of love, compassion, and support as you grieve. And know that you are entitled to take breaks from grief. Now take the deepest breath you have taken all day. And slowly return to the space when you are ready. Feeling the seat beneath you and opening your eyes. Today would be a great day for you to journal your experience. Write down the color of the ball of light that surrounded you and look up the meaning of that color and allow that to be medicine to your soul. And write down the message that your loved one had for you and meditate on those words. Allow them to guide you. Be reassured that your spirit guides on the other side are with you always, and you can always return to whomever you are grieving to receive comfort. Now, to complete our mindfulness session for today, please affirm by repeating after me. I am gentle with myself as I adjust to life after loss. Good. Let's say that again. I am gentle with myself as I adjust to life after loss. Great. One last time. I am gentle with myself after I adjust to life after loss. I'll say that again. I am gentle with myself as I adjust to life after loss. Beautiful. And that brings us to the end of our session. May you enjoy integrating mindfulness into your life daily. I invite you to be mindful, breathe deep often, and contemplate all the ways you can be patient with yourself and others as you grieve. Remember, mindfulness is always available to you every minute of every day. May you use each minute to be mindful. I am Dr. Aiko-Douglas, your host, transformational life coach, integration specialist, and mindfulness practitioner, here to empower you to transform your life one mindful decision at a time. I am also here inspiring you to be mindful of the products you use on and in your body, as well as the products you use around your home. Also, I want to remind you to support me in the Fab Over 40 campaign by voting for me and donating to the National Breast Cancer Foundation. Please use the link in the description to vote for me to be the next face of the new beauty magazine and Fab Over 40 and donate to this worthy cause. Thank you for your vote, your time, and your support. If you found this podcast through social media, please share which platform in the comments below. Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel to follow my journey and join my exclusive community on Patreon at Integr8 Lyfe. Thank you for tuning in, listening, engaging, and being mindful with me today. Namaste.